The only secure truth men have is that which they themselves create and dramatize. To live is to play at the meaning of life. Before we get into it, let's identify the problem with some rapid-fire statistics on mental health, prescriptions for mental health, and suicides. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, an estimated 1 in 5 adult Americans, or 51.5 million people, experience a mental illness in a given year. The most common mental illnesses are anxiety disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and phobias, mood disorders, such as major depression and bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. About half of those with a mental illness receive mental health services. About 5.6%, or 14.2 million people, experience a serious mental illness that interferes with major life activities in a given year. According to the Journal of the American Medical Association, prescription drug use for mental health has increased significantly over the past several decades. In 1988, about 1 in 50 adults were taking antidepressants, whereas by 2014, that number had risen to 1 in 8 adults. The use of prescription opioids for pain management contributes to the opioid epidemic in the United States, with opioid-related deaths increasing from 3,442 in 1999 to 47,600 in 2017, and suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. So why? Why are Americans so anxious, depressed, medicated, and suicidal? We've been inundated with neurochemical reasons like hormonal imbalances that stem from lack of nutrition, lack of sunlight, lack of physical exercise, etc. So rather than focusing on those very core pillars of mental health, let's focus on the harder to describe psychological reason. The psychological reason we are anxious, depressed, and medicated is that we're too smart. Yes, that's right. The crisis of modernity is that we're all too clever, too privy to life. Otto Rank describes it best. If man is the more normal, healthy, and happy, the more he can successfully repress, displace, deny, rationalize himself, and deceive others, then it follows that the neurotic comes from painful truth. Rank's definition of neurotic is somebody who sits on either side of the neurosis spectrum. The neurosis spectrum has the depressive at one end and the schizophrenic anxious type on the other. The depressive doesn't take in enough of life. They shrink back from life in a systematic self-restriction that results in helplessness and dependency. On the other hand, the anxious end of the spectrum takes in too much of life, is anxious and fearful, crippled by life's demands with a low self-evaluation in the face of them. Schizophrenia, the extreme end of anxiety, takes the risk of evolution to its furthest point in man. The risk of creating an animal who perceives himself, reflects on himself, and comes to understand that his animal body is a menace to himself. In the middle sits normal neurosis. To revisit Rank's quote, "The more normal, healthy, and happy, the more one can successfully repress, displace, deny the painful truth." This painful truth is the existential dilemma, that life is ultimately an insurmountable problem, that we are infinitely aware of our own finitude. So to summarize, the normal neurotic is somebody who can cut life down to a manageable size. They play it safe with freedom. They are immediate, shallow, automatically built into their culture. Think of your friend who hasn't experienced real trauma, the couple at your child's soccer game who are always beaming with orange wedges in hand, the boss who works 60-hour weeks and wouldn't have it any other way. Normal neurosis has a high likelihood of degeneration when your friend encounters that inevitable trauma. The couple with the oranges files for divorce, and your boss has a mental breakdown. But it wasn't always this hard. The problem with modernity is that to sit in this happy medium of normal neurosis is almost impossible. Rather than being shallow, modern times and modern technology have depth. We can see what is going on a world away with the swipe of a finger. We're privy to corruption the world over. Our culture is not our small town or even our ethnic group, but the intermixture of all cultures across the globe. Modern life is impossible to cut down to a manageable size for long. Our only hope for a semblance of normalcy is immediacy, which explains our need for immediate gratification and addiction. Immediacy is our only distraction from the anxious overwhelmingness and depressive underwhelmingness. Overwhelmingness, the idea that the world is too big, too much stimulus, a thing we need to pull away from. And underwhelmingness, the idea that nothing is mysterious or surprises us anymore, that we've learned it all. Why push towards life anymore? The Goldilocks zone of normal neurosis was a lot easier when culture was strong. Cultures like monotheism, hunter-gatherer life, even the beginnings of capitalist acquisition of consumer goods like post-war America. It was easy to embed yourself in culture, to get along and live safely within the probabilities of a given set of social rules. So what do we do if normal neurosis is not an option anymore? As Becker stated at the beginning of the video, to live is to play at the meaning of life. He goes on to say, the upshot of this whole tradition of thought is that it teaches us once and for all that childlike foolishness is the calling of mature men. Just this way, Rank prescribed the cure for neurosis as the need for legitimate foolishness. The ability to be careless, to disregard appearances, to relax and laugh at the world. We need to, in a modern way, do what religion has always asked, to believe in a justification of life that seems absurd. Not to say to bring back religion, but to say to embrace change and play with absurdity. This may be why psychedelics help cure depression and anxiety. If you're depressed, psychedelics are a form of play that allow you to take in more of life, to get a little more anxious about the possibilities of life, and to see to those possibilities. If you're anxious, psychedelics may help cut life down to a manageable size, help you see possibility in a way that isn't overwhelming, but motivating. At the end of the day, rather than striving for blissfully ignorant normalcy that wouldn't last, we should strive to find the best illusion to live under, to find our most legitimate foolishness. Becker's opinion is to optimize for freedom, dignity, and hope. These three things absorb the problem of neurosis and turn it to creative living. How do you or can you find freedom, dignity, and hope in your life? I hope this perspective on the neurosis spectrum has motivated you to pursue a more examined life. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.